Hey guys, this isn't the video I thought I would be making next, but I do think it's a video worth making. We're coming really close to Outcome Memories version 0.2's release date, and with that, there's a lot of things I want to say. I'm mostly going to talk about my concerns for the game moving forward from a game design and balance perspective, and then I want to touch on some community mindset stuff regarding the release date. I'll then close off with just some personal ramblings if you want to listen to that or not. Outcome Memories is a game I really want to talk about. It's just with the style of content I make, I tend to not have much to say unless something big happens, but here we go anyways. When it comes to balance, I have one word for you: verticality. Verticality is going to be a major factor in the balance and meta for this game's future, and I think a defining trait on what will make a character good or bad will depend on their access to vertical mobility. Regardless of the mechanics of your game, asymmetrical or not, movement is always one of the most important attributes your character has. In a game with no other stamina values or anything like that, movement and mobility is essential to survival in Outcome Memories. Let's just first look at the maps that are coming, which are leaning much more towards a vertical geometry. Higher and harder to reach positions are naturally going to be stronger for survivors, allowing them to hopefully see more, as well as generally just be in safer areas from the executioner that take more time to get to. For executioners, higher points of interest also allow them to spot targets easier, as well as use the height to ambush and start a chase with advantage. Verticality is a powerful tool universally, just look at 2011X's spring technique. Now, let's just look at upcoming characters in general, and more specifically hone in on how they relate to this verticality concept. Do note that many of their specific values and how their abilities work are not set in stone. These characters might look like it, but trust me, they are not finished yet. If something sounds too weak or too strong, just know that all of these characters are a work in progress and they haven't settled on specific values for everything yet. First, we have Silver. Silver seems like he'll be an incredible character in general, as one of the three main Hedgehogs should be. His ability to displace the Executioner as well as line them up for other teammates will make him a force to be reckoned with. However, beyond his combat abilities, so to speak, I think what ties Silver together as a very promising character is his flight. Flight is seemingly omnidirectional movement from the footage we've seen, and can easily traverse a map and put himself in advantageous positions to both use his abilities as well as evade the Executioner. Flight is what allows Silver to easily get into position to help his team, as well as get out should things get hairy. This by itself makes Silver strong even without considering all of his other abilities. Next we have Blaze. She has two abilities, one of which gets altered by a meter. Her first ability we'll mention, Soul Kick, is very similar to Punch on Knuckles but can be aimed omnidirectionally with her camera. Using this ability for movement will heavily depend on a few things, but what's important is that it can be used for vertical mobility. When Blaze misses this kick, it consumes both her unique gauge as well as ragdolls her. Even if it does ragdoll her should she use any variant for mobility, that can still absolutely be worth using as long as it's in an area the Executioner can't reach fast enough. Blaze also has access to two other abilities, which is Blaze Javelin and Soul Flame. While neither of these abilities are stuns, they're heavy displacements. Javelin requires timing and aim, whereas Soul Flame is basically a flamethrower. These will help Blaze stall a lot, and of course, one of the best ways to stall would be pushing an Executioner off of an edge and making them have to spend time getting back to that area. When it comes to Executioners, again, we're just going to focus on verticality and movement here. Colossus is first. He's got a wall climb. There's not much to say other than as long as it works consistently on most major surfaces and allows him to shortcut to many common high vantage points. That'll help him a lot on these maps. After all, the rest of Colossus's kit is being a bit of a bully Executioner, allowing him to get high bursts of horizontal movement with charge and overall brute force through some of the tricks that survivors have. Next we have Fleetway. He can literally fly, and some of his abilities are designed with having high altitude in mind already. I shouldn't need to say this, but Fleetway is very clearly going to be the most mobile Executioner in this game, and through that alone, I'm having a really hard time seeing a future where he's clearly not the best Executioner in the game. Tripwire, on the other hand, is an Executioner we've seen the least of, and we know she'll at least have flight as a main gimmick in her kit somewhere. We don't know how exactly it'll work compared to Fleetway, but if it's anything like Fleetway's, she'll be incredibly strong already. These three Executioners, especially the flying ones, can afford to ignore a lot of map geometry and layouts way more than the other survivors or 2011X can, which makes them even stronger in a chase. So what exactly does all of this mean anyways, and what am I trying to say? I'm mostly just trying to say that I think the matchups in this game are going to matter more and more, and verticality and overall mobility are going to get even more important to a survivor's kit. Funnily enough, let's talk about Marvel Rivals for a second. This is a game where a few of the cast is just flying, and it forces enemies into a sink or swap position. Either they keep playing the hero they really want to play but can't contest a flying hero effectively, or they can swap to a different hero that's far more capable of shutting down their flying heroes. I don't want this game to become a situation where some of the characters are significantly weaker against some of these new executioners. They might be weak against a lot of the other ones scheduled for release at some point. Let's quickly run through the 7 survivors so far, and specifically focus on their vertical abilities and their overall movement capabilities. Okay, so just to clarify about this section, no, this section isn't a guide on the upcoming content, nor is it saying anything definitively about it. These are just my own personal thoughts and observations about the gameplay I've both watched and experienced myself when it comes to the new executioners. I'm not saying my ideas or observations are perfect, I just want the best for this game, so I want to put my own ideas out there and my own thoughts and feelings on these sorts of things and where the game is going. Sonic is the first one we'll talk about, and I think he'll be one of the most heavily impacted by the new 3 executioners. His moveset is highly horizontal, ground-based, and very telegraphed. Peel Out has a very long and loud wind-up. All of the new executioners have options that can make it very easy to get close to him at a moment's notice before he can properly peel out and start hitting him. Peel Out is also just a hard move to control precisely, and while it can jump, Sonic does need to obey map geometry. He has to follow paths and layouts. The 3 new executioners, especially the flying ones, can use that to their advantage. With enough map knowledge, they can take shortcuts around these paths Sonic needs to follow, and they can easily close the gap or cut him off entirely from it. Next is Drop Dash. Drop Dash can jump, but is largely grounded and already difficult to land against an executioner that's ready for it and understands how it works. It's already difficult to land it on 2011X when he's ready for it, and all he does is jump. If Sonic isn't able to land Drop Dash, that'll also hurt his overall survivability thanks to being unable to fill his dodge meter. So not only is he going to struggle to hit flying enemies or these very mobile ones, with how telegraphed the move actually is, it makes it very easy for Colossus to shut it down entirely through a block or just dodging it. If Colossus on launch still has his speed after being stunned and his gliding jump, he has multiple ways of just outright ignoring Drop Dash. My overall opinion on Sonic is that they should probably look into increasing the ways he can be threatening to highly mobile executioners. Drop Dash can cut off 2011X, but I think these other 3 executioners all have something that makes Drop Dash a really weak option as a stunning move. It'll still be a strong mobility option, but that's not really good enough in my eyes. I think the best way to put it is that Sonic's ability to protect others has been greatly diminished by the addition of these executioners, but his personal survivability through having a dodge meter and 2 mobility options has not. And as such, I think this incentivizes Sonic players to save people a lot less outside of Peel Out. When his only other option is a really telegraphed and easy to avoid stun, what else is he supposed to do when Fleetway sees him coming and flies 3 miles away and attacks someone else? I also just think that Sonic, by his nature of being Sonic the Hedgehog, should be a universally powerful or at least universally solid character that can fulfill his intended team role regardless of the executioner. I think a good starting point would be giving him another stunning ability, with this one being a lot better at actually stunning and protecting others, and is overall more threatening to a mobile executioner like Fleetway, Tripwire, and even Colossus to a degree. However, using it puts Drop Dash on cooldown for some period of time, and regenerates a lot less dodge than Drop Dash's 3-piece combo. Using Drop Dash would also probably put this move on cooldown, and vice versa. He has to choose on what he wants to do. Next we have Tails. Tails only has 2 abilities, a long-range stun that leaves him extremely vulnerable for both the charge up and the actual action of firing it, and a flight ability. Tails is already a character that struggles quite a bit in my opinion, and he'll struggle a lot more against the flying executioners. His stun is already highly situational due to its long charge time and loud audio cues, but should an executioner hear this, they can just fly at him and kill him before it's even charged. You also have maps having some pretty nasty depth of field to them, which can make sniping his tails not nearly as possible otherwise. Hitting airborne targets also isn't easy as you might think, mostly just because of the drag of the laser. Once it's actually shooting, it's hard to adjust it to hit a moving target, especially as fast as some of these executioners can now move. Glide will be a lot stronger against Colossus, but Fleetway and possibly Tripwire just won't care about it. In the case of Fleetway, on top of his flying basic attack, he also has a laser of his own that he can use to shoot down Tails, as Tails is a sitting duck in the air. He's also got his own flying spin dash move, which can really just shut down any advanced gliding path Tails might try and take. Tails is already a character I think isn't very good. He basically has no self-defense capabilities, and all of his moves have very clearly exploitable flaws to them. His team support is also just not good at all. The only thing he consistently brings is a very committal, slow, and risky stun, which isn't really supportive, and then he's outclassed by Eggman and Metal Sonic support. I know they already plan on expanding Tails and giving him a lot more functions to his blaster, and the biggest thing I'd look for giving him is actual self-defense options, and making Glide much easier to cancel. As it stands, Tails just doesn't do enough for his team, and more importantly, he doesn't do enough for himself. Knuckles is also a character that's primarily horizontal, and what he does have for verticality tends to go downwards instead of upwards. His punch has a super high vertical hitbox, meaning it should land easier against people flying above him, as long as he lines it upright, but Knuckles himself will always follow the same jumping trajectory. He also has his ground punch, which he might have opportunities to use more on these new maps, but I can't see it being relevant outside of 2011X and Colossus in specific situations. Counter will be fine though, as long as he can land it successfully, of course. Really, I would say Knuckles is kinda alright at dealing with some of the new characters and their gimmicks, especially someone like Fleetway. His tier 3 punch melts Fleetway's HP bar, as it should if he lands it. His wall cling and glide can absolutely be useful against these new executioners, but I still think he might struggle to find value using these things more than he would against 2011X. While I wouldn't be opposed to him getting some upgrades to his currently existing abilities or getting a new one, I think he's one of the more well-off characters going into this update. The biggest issue Knuckles will have going into this update is primarily just getting away once he actually does land one of his abilities. His core kit is very strong at stunning and fighting the Executioner, he just doesn't really have any strong options for getting away. And I think that's going to be a lot more important coming into these new Executioners. Amy is largely going to be fine, I think. She has 2 stuns, with one being one of the easiest stuns in the game to land on the ground, and a ranged stun. Her cards are difficult to talk about because they're unpredictable in RNG, so we're not really going to focus on them. The main thing is that Amy can throw her hammer. A lot of people like to pretend this will help her against flying executioners. Let's be realistic, it really will not in most cases. You're not going to be hitting that shot on Fleetway, I'm sorry. If you do, that's crazy, but it's not going to be something that happens consistently. She's a character I think will probably see a lot less value against the flying executioners and will probably have a hard time against Colossus. What I can say is that I think Hammer Bounce might genuinely get more usage cases, which is nice I guess, and she brings utility outside of that with her cards. Really, I don't think she needs many changes other than maybe allowing for some RNG manipulation she could do with her cards after certain thresholds and timers or whatever. Having 2 solid stuns, a bounce for mobility, and the ability to heal is really just enough for her, I think. If she ends up needing help, I'm sure she'll get it. Cream is a character who will benefit a lot from having maps with a lot more verticality to them, as her glide actually is pretty strong, especially in Last Man Standing. Assuming new maps give her more glide value, she'll find success there, hopefully. She doesn't have a lot of mobility outside of that though. Dash is an ability I really don't like, and it feels almost like filler, and her glide is map sensitive. As far as I know, she also has no way of locating her fellow survivors, which she really could use for multiple reasons. I have no other real feedback for her, other than hoping her rework helps her with the way the design of this game is shifting. Metal Sonic is a character I think will also be made a lot weaker in general. His biggest weakness is being focused for extensive periods of time, and the 3 new Executioners have a significantly easier time doing that than 2011X. Assuming Metal doesn't somehow escape and start healing, Colossus has an ability he can simply press to reveal the location of every survivor. Fleetway has 2. One of them turns him into a flying ball of death at the same time. Metal Sonic Stun is also highly committal, self-damaging, and horizontal. The former 2 traits are definitely going to feel a lot more punishing against these new Executioners. The saving grace is that Metal Sonic can do a lot of damage to Fleetway, and even his Death Explosion won't damage him now, so at least as long as you don't die at a range to Fleetway, you can bring value to your team. It's also just, I'm pretty sure the more damaging option also costs more HP to Metal, so yeah. I know they plan on adding a grapple hook ability, I still don't know if they plan on doing that, but I think it's also worth noting that in lore, Metal Sonic can fly. Anyways, I'm really not sure how to feel about Metal going into version 0.2, we'll just have to see. Eggman is probably the biggest example of a character that just goes to show how strong verticality is in Outcome Memories. He's one of the few characters that has easy access to vertical mobility on command, whereas many others don't. Eggman's overall kit is strong, but I think the strongest part has always been his jump cooldown and his double jump. He's a character that's allowed to path in a way no other character is easily allowed to. He's been so dominant throughout the game because I think 2011X is genuinely just under-equipped to deal with him in certain cases. The most common example of this is Eggman reaching a high place with a double jump that 2011X can't. The new 3 Executioners have easy answers to this. The only concern then becomes the horizontal distance Eggman can cross with double jump, which might be a bit of a concern for 2011X and Colossus, but it also just doesn't matter to Fleetway and Tripwire. The main worry I have is that the distance Eggman can gain might mean a lot less with flying Executioners and Colossus' speed boost on stun. Shielding against Colossus from some of the recent footage seems detrimental to Eggman's survival, and the distance he can gain with his speed boost can easily be contested with Colossus' charge, or Fleetway's flight and his spin dash. It's hard to say how good Eggman's current kit will be going into version 0.2, but like Cream, he's slated for a rework at some point. So who knows, but I think a lot of the people who hate playing against Eggman will have a much easier time with the new executioners. My overall point is that Outcome Memories is getting a major complexity upgrade with these new executioners, and I'm just worried about some of the old survivors not being well equipped to deal with these additions. Now, here's the thing. I've said before that aiming to achieve perfect balance is something no game should ever really do, as not only is it just unattainable and impractical, but it's also boring. With a roster as big as the one planned for Outcome Memories, there's naturally just going to be characters that are better or worse in certain situations. My main concern is that if you see someone playing Fleetway as the executioner and then go, oh, I guess I just can't justify playing Sonic or Tails unless I want to die or be dead weight. Especially if they ever add anything like character mastery or levels or something like that. I'd really hate for the game to reach that level of balance where you feel like playing your favorite character would be throwing a game entirely. I really don't know how many flying executioners they plan on adding, but for a few months at least, half the game will be flying executioners, and let's be honest, very few people are going to be playing 2011X until his rework. X is just a fundamentally outdated design with where the game is headed in its future. All three of the upcoming executioners, even when not considering their currently overtuned pre-release stats or attributes, are still just fundamentally stronger executioners in 2011X thanks to the tools at their disposal. I genuinely believe we're hitting a power spike with the new content, and I do hope they take the time to reassess each version 0.1 character that isn't slated for a rework and see if they need any help. This isn't meant to doompost about the game or say that version 0.2 will be an executioner-sided game. That's not my intention, and I don't have that level of foresight. I'm actually really excited for the direction we're going with these 5 new characters. It's the nature of this game that's in its very early infancy. We're seeing characters that have much more promising designs and are generally just far more interesting mechanically. We're just in that nebulous balancing period, and balancing is more than just stat adjustments and damage values, as those can only do so much. Sometimes, characters might just need more abilities, reworked abilities, or different limitations lifted or established to become balanced, and I hope they're not afraid to tinker with that. Let's talk about the release window for Point 2, because I really just haven't liked the response I've seen to it. The release date for this update was supposed to happen on Halloween, or at least a few days before, somewhere in that window. Turns out, they'll have to delay it until roughly 2 weeks after Halloween is the date I've personally seen. People are understandably annoyed, especially with how transparent these developers are about showing off all the new stuff coming. They show off all these new things, accidentally giving people the impression that these updates are close, but then they aren't as close as people thought. Now, if you want to know what I think, and I say this a lot, but game development is hard. These developers are real people that have bodily needs like food, water, and sleep. Believe me, that takes up a lot of time. A lot of these developers are also teenagers or college students. High schoolers. That's a lot of time taken up too by that, and also means that they've just got other things going on. Mental health is also a factor. This game has over 100 million visits and typically has a player count of 20k. That's a lot of people. Imagine the pressure you might feel from both the desire to please these people as well as the expectations you have to reach in order to do so. Imagine your own personal expectations and the bar you set for yourself. Even outside these daily schedule things and the mounting pressure of a growing game, there's a lot of things that can affect your mental health outside of that, such as thousands of strangers calling you a disappointment or worse, all because you had to delay an update you're working on, and these people aren't even directly paying you to do it. There's a lot of drama that you can get involved in that might slow the game down, or there's actual tragedies that can happen to a developer that might impede them for weeks at a time. Of course, there's also everything in between on that scale. I don't want to pretend like I'm innocent either. I made a Cartman Land tweet prior to the release date news. For those of you who don't know, Cartman Land refers to an episode of South Park in which Cartman buys out a water park and advertises it, but only he can go to it. In my case, it was lighthearted and about multiple games beyond just Outcome Memories, but with the version 0.2 release date news that I saw after this tweet, I genuinely just feel bad about making it now, and it's absolutely the first game everyone thinks of when it comes to this type of stuff. So I'd like to just say I'm sorry for that, and to show I'm not perfect either, as much as I talk about community positivity and all that stuff. Let's assume version 0.2 drops on November 14th. That's about 112 days from the initial release date of July 25th to November 14th. Really, I think it's safe to say the start of August to early middle November as the production cycle. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think one of these characters needed to be made mostly from scratch too, right? This is an impressive output of content regardless of how you look at it, especially considering all the external factors that could affect game development, which there very publicly was. Even if you cut out an entire character from this update, that's 4 characters in 3 months. That's a lot, no matter how you slice it. I don't think the developers deserve to have all the flack they're getting for having to delay the update by 2 weeks. It really just doesn't seem fair to me. I mean, I guess you're well within your right to do it, and I'm no authority over anyone's behavior, but I just personally think it's unfair. As mentioned, I too get jealous at seeing other content creators that are larger than me get to do things like play characters early, and I don't have any problems with admitting I'm jealous and wishing I could do the same. Because that's just kind of where it ends for me. It's just jealousy of not being able to play with the sparkly new toys. I can absolutely understand why someone who isn't a content creator and doesn't have a large following would really start to feel like Outcome Memories seems like an elite club of popular people or something. It's just too important to understand something like that has never been the case. It's never been about showing you cool things you can't play yet. These developers are just that passionate about what they're doing, and are just that excited to show everyone what they've created. That's why there's so much footage, that's why they let content creators play things early, that's why they share so much. I say it a lot, but no one wants an update finished and released more than the people creating it, and I think that's really true here. It feels really bad to say, but I think a lot of people have misinterpreted the excitement of the development team as some sort of superiority complex in which they're showing off all the content that you can't play. And again, I can't necessarily blame anyone, but it's overall just an unfortunate circumstance. Looping back to the release date itself, 2 weeks is not a long time. It'll be here before a lot of us know it, and I think it'll be worth the wait. I'm not really in the business of, making content to show off things early or give an exclusive look into stuff. I'm not really one to make news videos, and I'm not someone who likes to make videos where the main point of it is to give my own opinion and observations like this one. With the content creator stuff that's led to one big explosion in the community, I really don't have that much to say other than I am admittedly jealous, but I don't think it's a bad thing for the developers to do. They're just passionate about showing off the work they've been slaving over, and to them it's a fun way to give back to their community by allowing content creators to try and make up some fun videos to watch while they wait for the update. I guess people's anxiety over the next big content update is really just starting to get to them. My passion has always been talking about the mechanics of these games and sharing knowledge and positive understanding of how they work. But recently, I felt just a need to comment on things like community behavior more and all that other stuff. If I have a platform, I want to use it to help people, which is a big reason why I made this video. It's a pretty tall ask, and I know that no matter how loud my voice is, I can never fully plug up any of the behaviors I personally don't like or think are bad, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't talk about it at least. Because it really does just bum me out seeing a lot of people treat the Outcome Memory devs the way they treat them, especially over the release date news. Not saying people can't be critical of it, but I think people are just getting way too used to treating them like trash, basically. Besides, I'm just a guy with a microphone, really. I'm not some sort of authority figure or anything like that. I'm pretty out of the loop on all the other things that have happened with the game beyond that, but I just know these people have been getting put through the grinder, and it makes me sad, man. So if it means anything, I think the work the Outcome Memories team is doing is great. They're clearly a passionate team that's working on the game because it's what they love, and it's what they want to do. They're super excited to show all of it off, and want you to play it as soon as possible. They just really want it to be in the best state it can be before publicly releasing it. Their passion is what's driving this project, and it's important as a community to not make all that passion fizzle out. Anyways, that's really all I've got to say right now. Depending on the release date of version 0.2, I might not be around to cover it as soon as I would like, which is another reason why I made this video. Of course, I'll cover it as soon as I can, and I hope you guys are excited for it. If you like this video, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Just make sure you look after your own well-being. Take care.